Okay. Imagine for a moment that you received an invitation to sit in a group of 8 people and directly experience an ancient Sanskrit text called the Vijñāna Bhairava. Wisdom, Vijñāna, wisdom, knowledge of Source, Bhairava, one of the many ways we refer to the source of all existence, Bhairava. Bhairava often symbolizes letting ourselves be fearlessly open to the source essence, the fearlessness aspect of Source, and letting ourselves, through that willingness to be fearless and open and available, we can experience the hard-earned wisdom inherent in this realm, Vijñāna Bhairava. This is one way to try to describe what Vijñāna Bhairava means. It means many things. Ultimately, we could say it, the divine inherent wisdom of existence. Well, I was invited many years ago, probably about 23 years ago is my best guess, to be a part of a group sitting with an ancient wisdom teacher, a Sanskrit scholar from India, and there would be 8 of us sitting in a circle. And I said, yes, absolutely, thank you so much. When and where? Thank you so much for the invitation. So, it was in a Shiva temple, and there were meditation cushions arranged on the floor for us. And I sat on one of the cushions, and we all gathered together for the first day of this exploration. And the Sanskrit scholar came in and sat down with us. So sweet, so kind, so gentle. And welcomed us and then chanted an opening mantra. It was an opening mantra I had never heard before, but I could tell it was an opening mantra. And the energy of this that he chanted with us, this opening mantra, was so soothing, so comforting, so familiar, so simple and natural, and the energy was so sweet and gentle and kind and welcoming. And he rang some chimes after the opening mantra, and we each, when we were ready, opened our eyes. And he then reached into his bag, this sort of shoulder bag that he had that was made out of some sort of natural fibers. And there was a pouch that he pulled out of his bag, and out of the pouch he pulled a book. The book was so old, could have been thousands of years old, because the spine had worn away. So it was really more just a collection of pages with a little bit of one little section, there was a little bit of a spine left, and there was a top cover and a bottom cover. Relatively thick book. And he laid it in front of him on the asana that he was seated on, made out of wool. And he was sitting right beside me, and I could see the text as he opened it, and it was all in Sanskrit. There was no English. And he then was going to share with us this as he would, on the fly, transliterate it from Sanskrit to English for us. He then shared with us the beginning, which went something like this, as I recall. Parvati, also known as Shakti, asks Shiva, would it be possible for you to share some dharanas, some ways, some practices? And he shared with all of us, I know that many of you know quite a bit of Sanskrit, so sometimes I will use the Sanskrit word and sometimes I will use the English word. This word dharana, D-H-A-R-A-N-A, is a Sanskrit word that we could transliterate into English as way, practice. He said, I tend to lean toward the English word way, so we could say that she's saying to Parvati is saying to Shiva, would you be willing to share some ways, some dharanas? That would allow the people to directly experience their true essence and be of assistance in their human experience to realize the inherent union and the wholeness of all existence. Shiva replies, yes, absolutely. Here are 112 dharanas, 112 ways that you can directly experience and see which ones are beneficial in your journey of spiritual awakening, your journey of sadhana. So he then invited us into the first one of the 112 ways. And we then got to directly experience it. And then, after a pause, he would then teach us the second one, and then the third one, and the fourth one. And the first day went like this. In between each one, there was a pause, and he would let us be in the experience, and then he would ring some chimes to transition to the next one. And then we had, restroom break and a lunch break and an afternoon flow. And all throughout the day, we got to experience these dharanas from the Vijñāna Bhairava. That evening, when the sun went down, he very playfully said to us, I play a little bit of sitar. Would any of you be interested in hearing some sitar? We all said, yes, please, thank you so much. So he got up and he went into another room and he came back with this big case and opened up the case and lifted out his sitar, this beautiful, looked to me to be very ancient sitar. And, sat down and he was sitting right to my right. And so I, sitting right beside him as he's tuning it. It turns out a sitar has many adjustment knobs on it, and he's adjusting it and tuning it and getting it to sound, how he knows it's to be sounding for the playing of music with this sitar. And he then adjusts what he calls the buzz. There were these little strings down at the base, and he adjusted that. There was all this tuning that he did, and then he began playing the sitar for us. Oh, my goodness, so powerful. The Shakti, the energy flowing from the melodies and the flow of the sitar music that he played for us. So beautiful. And this is how we went into the evening. He probably played for an hour for us. It was so amazing. And he thanked all of us, and he then said, we'll reconvene tomorrow morning, be here at sunup, because we were, operating in a temple that was where we were operating with sunlight that would allow him to read the Sanskrit to us and transliterate it to English. And day after day, we would do these dharanas. We would enter into them and directly experience them. And at night, he would play sitar for us, and we would sing and play and dance and be silly. Well, as the days unfolded, someone heard about this who was an Indian tablas player, the drums that are called tablas. And one evening, when the sun went down, he arrived and asked, would it be okay if he played tablas with our Sanskrit scholar, and we would all then get to enjoy the sitar with the sound of the tablas. And he said, oh yes, please join us. And he gestured for him to come sit, take a seat with us. And they started tuning together, because the tablas player tunes the drum to the sitar. You could see how they were tuning the instruments together so that the drum would sound, be in, tune with the sitar. Then they began playing, and we, oh my goodness, we just got up and danced, and we enjoyed, we rocked the Shakti house. It was so much fun. Well, this went on day after day after day. One day, when we were in our exploration of the 112 dharanas, the 112 ways, he invited us into a dharana that involved taking our hands, closing our eyes, and taking our hands and pressing our fingers over our eyes. I think it was the ring finger and the middle finger over the eyes. The little finger, as I recall, was on the sides of the nose, where the nose meets the cheeks. And then the thumbs, I think, were where your ears meet your neck. And then the index fingers, I think, were up top toward the temple. I can't remember the exact position of the hands. It was so long ago. And he went around and he would adjust each of our hands to ensure that we were in the right place. And when he got to me and he positioned my hands in the just right place, instantly, I was directly experiencing an infinite grid of points of blue light, equidistant apart, off to infinity in front of me, above me, to the sides of me, below me, behind me. Infinitely in all directions, there was this grid of blue points of light. Very symmetrical, perfect symmetry, these blue lights. And I realized I was one of the blue lights. I was experiencing this infinite grid of us. I was aware that we all are these points of light in this elegant wholeness, this blue grid of loveliness. It was life-changing. And he eventually rang the chimes, as he would do, to transition from one dharana to the next. Well, this one was the final one we did right before lunch. So right after this experience, we were going to be transitioning to lunch. After we had lunch, I was out for a walk, and I saw him, and he was approaching me to have conversation. And when we began our conversation, he said to me, So the dharana that we experienced right before lunch, what did you experience? I said, oh, thank you so much for asking. I wanted to speak with you about this. And I shared with him how when he got my fingers in the right position, I instantly was directly experiencing this infinite grid of these blue points of light going off into infinity in all directions, in front of me, above me, to the right and to the left, below me, behind me, in all directions, and that I was one of the points of blue light. And he smiled and giggled and he said, oh yes, you have experienced the grid of Nila Bindu. I said, oh yes. He said, Nila means blue in Sanskrit. Bindu means the light from which everything emerges. The light in which everything exists. You have experienced the blue light of consciousness that you are, that I am, that everyone is, and everything is. The blue light from which everything expresses itself, emerges, exists. The blue light in which everything exists. You have experienced this grid. This dharana has the potential to have this direct experience. This is so wonderful that you have experienced this. He said, what I have heard throughout the years is this can lead to an experience where you, instead of a grid, you experience it as all-pervasive blue light. He said, did you experience that? I said, no. He said, neither have I. I've never experienced it as all-pervasive blue light. But I too have experienced the grid that you share here in from earlier today. He said, please don't let your mind come in and now be attached to this or be attached to the possibility of the all-pervasive blue light. Please just be available and not be attached to any of this. I said, oh, thank you so much for that. And then he moved along and I moved along, and we then returned after lunch and continued our exploration of the 112 dharanas known as the Vijñāna Bhairava. As the days continued to unfold, there came a day where I realized, oh, we're probably going to get to the 112th dharana today, which we did. And we experienced that final dharana, and there were more pages in the book. So he moves the page over, and then on the very next page, he says to us, transliterating from Sanskrit to English for us, upon the completion of the 112th dharana, Shiva then expressed to Parvati, in case 112 dharanas is not enough, here's 15 more. And he laughed and he said, oh, the generous heart of Shiva that we are. We are Shiva, and our heart is so generous. Of course, we would give ourselves 15 more dharanas, just in case. One of those might be helpful to us. So then we got to experience those one by one by one. In this experience of 112 dharanas plus 15, what I came to realize is there were commonalities with all of the practices. They all were ways of shifting attention from the limited perspective of the mind into the true perspective of the eternal essence that we are. And what became very clear is each of them carried the potential, if we were to be in them regularly enough, that it could change the habit of our attention. They all carried that potential. You could feel it. If you were regular in these, you could see that it would potentially change the habit of your attention so you weren't so automatically captured in the limited perspective of the mind. If you were to be in them regularly, you might be more naturally able to not be so likely to get pulled into a limited thought and a belief when it arises. They all carried that potential. And in that moment when this realization came to me, it actually happened during the blue light grid experience, the points of blue light, the infinite grid of blue points of light. During that dharana is when I realized this truth, that they all had this in common. They were all ways of shifting our attention and allowing us to directly experience the eternal reality, the wholeness, the elegant wholeness of who we really are, as we've chosen to come into this realm and explore the play of separation, the play of the limited perspective of the mind. And that it's not wrong or bad if we do get captured in the mind. We've chosen to create this realm and explore what it's like to be captured in that limited perspective where we believe we're not good enough and we're unworthy and we're separate and we're alone and it's scary and we get afraid and we want to manipulate and control the external environment to try to get it to be how we want it to be. All of this is normal and there isn't anything wrong or bad with any of it. And yet these practices are ways that carry the potential to wake up to the play of separation while in the play of separation and honor all of it inherently is the elegant wholeness. And in that realization, during the infinite blue points of light grid of eternity, I realized that all of the practices, in some way we could say, are like a bridge. The metaphor that came to me that day was a river, and there was a bridge that we had built for ourselves to go from one side of the river to the other side of the river. And when we walk across the bridge from one side of the river to the other side of the river and get to the land on the other side, we don't need the bridge anymore. So when we get to the other side of the river, that land over there, we don't need to keep walking on the bridge. The bridge allowed us to now experience what it's like on this side of the river. Not that either side of the river is worse or better than the other. There's two sides, and this bridge gives us a chance to walk across and experience what it's like on the other side of the river. The practices in some ways are like that. They're like bridges. In some ways we could say the Vijñāna Bhairava is 112 bridges, plus 15 more. The generous heart of Shiva that we are. We gave ourselves 15 more bridges, just in case 112 bridges weren't enough. Each of the practices are like that. They're ways that allow us to experience the perspective of wholeness, the eternal essence that we are, amidst the play of separation. And so, when I was at the ashram, we were always invited to realize that when we were meditating in the style of one of the styles of meditation that we were invited into, where you would recite the mantra, Om Namah Shivaya, as you would breathe in. Inwardly, you would extend out the Om Namah Shivaya as you would breathe in. And then on the out-breath, inwardly, you would say, Om Namah Shivaya. And then on the next in-breath, Om Namah Shivaya. And on the next out-breath, Om Namah Shivaya. And what they would share with us is, if at some point in this flow, you're just resting in stillness, and it's very calm and peaceful, and there are no troubling thoughts, you don't need to keep reciting the mantra. It's like a bridge. It has allowed you to now be on the side of the bridge where there isn't the disturbance, where there aren't any limiting thoughts and beliefs. If that's what you're experiencing, you don't need to keep reciting the mantra. Now, let's say you do get pulled into a limiting thought and belief, and you start to, create some suffering for yourself by getting pulled into that. You can return to your practice, this dharana, this way of reciting the mantra and focusing on your breath again. This is a bridge that can once again assist you in experiencing reality in that way in which there's no disturbance. The stillness, the peacefulness. And to remember that it's okay if you do get captured. We're simply letting you know there is this way, this dharana, that can assist you, if you like, to explore what is it like when you're experiencing reality and you're not captured in the limited perspective of the mind. The Vijñāna Bhairava is 112 bridges, plus 15 more. Yeah.